Hello, this is the Live Wild podcast, and I'm your host, Hilary Rose. In this episode, I chat to legendary Irish fashion designer and artist, Helen Steele. We chat about her beginnings as a struggling artist, how her art became wearable, and then blew up into an international fashion brand.
And the pop video had only been up, I think, maybe 3 weeks. And when I looked at it, the pop video had 40 million views. I couldn't believe it. It's so weird. It's so weird because you're living in Monaghan, you're working out of like a rural Monaghan, right at the border. You're working out of like an old duck hatchery. Farming is like the basis of the community. Everyone's into GA. Like the coolest thing is probably a GA jersey. And I'm not dissing that. They're very cool.
Yeah.
But and then I like switch on my laptop and then I see like this fashion forecasting site, global fashion forecasting site, having, Jessie J wearing my stuff. And
wow.
And a picture of then this South Korean band and saying, that this print is kind of formative for the following season. I nearly got sick laughing.
It's quite a remarkable story. We also chat about art therapy, the pitfalls of the fashion industry, and dressing pop stars. She is an incredible lady. I think you're going to love this chat. So, Helen Steele, thank you so much for joining me on the Live Wild podcast this morning. I'm so honoured that you decided to come on and talk to me. So thank you.
God, thank you for having me on. You're very good.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So let's go back to the very start of your amazing career, because you are one of the most legendary artists and fashion designers, in my opinion, in Ireland. But I'm curious about where it all started for you. Did it start at school? Did you go to fashion school? Did you go to art school? Where did it start for you?
All of the above. I was big into art as a kid, and I have ADHD, but like I'm a 70s, 80s kid. So back then it wasn't really kind of recognized, and I wasn't diagnosed until much later. So my mum, the usual, get outside and run, and I get out of the house at 9 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Don't want to see you unless it's obvious. Obviously, don't want to see you, don't want to hear you. But on rainy days when we were stuck inside, to stop me from going absolutely mental. Mind you, my mum used to kick me outside in the rain as well, which is why I love running so much.
It's such an 80s thing, isn't it? Get out and I don't want to see you until tea time. Like.
Yeah. But there was such freedom in that. It was fantastic.
There was.
There was, yeah. But my mum basically used to give me on rainy days, Crayola crayons, the worst thing actually to give a hyper kid, because he'd scribble all over the walls and you just couldn't get it off the walls. But I graduated from those onto colouring in pencils, which helped the walls in the house. But so
the murals, we'll call them murals.
And actually I did the same with my daughter, and she used to draw these in the bathroom. Of course, they're supposed to be like these love hearts, these giant love hearts in bloody crayon, and it never looked like a love heart. It looked like, and it had like these kind of squiggly, it looked like hairs. It basically, her drawings of love hearts looked, with love coming out of them, looked like giant vaginas on our bathroom wall. But,
she was ahead of her time, so
she was. But to go back, look, Mum used to give me just an outlet, and I found that colouring in and drawing and painting was just something that just stayed with me the whole way along. It was a way of kind of I don't know, like controlling my behavior, and it really helped. And it's something that I still do, like even if I'm in a meeting, or it genuinely helps me concentrate. There's like doodles, my diary is here beside me, but there's doodles all over everything I do, all over my diary. And sometimes when I'm doodling, I'll get really good ideas as well. So it's nearly like a form of therapy. But So I used to love making kind of clothes for Barbie dolls, Cindy dolls, all those kind of things, dressing the dogs up in cutting our curtains at home and making skirts for my station.
Amazing.
It was hugely unpopular. Um, and then the whole way through kind of secondary school, I used to kind of make my own clothes. And then I went to fashion college and yeah, loved it. But came out of fashion college, and back then it was like kind of mid 90s. There was loads of manufacturing units and companies in Ireland at the time. We used to manufacture a lot of clothes back then. So I had really good practice on pattern cutting tables and assistant pattern cutters, and got really good experience. And then I got married and moved to Monaghan, kept painting. I was in a band. The paintings were being sold on Merrion Square and Stephen's Green weekends, and they were financing the band. And then I just kept painting, got taken on by two different galleries. This was kind of pre-boom. One of the galleries was in London, one was in Berlin, and then another one in Miami, which is random. But and then I got signed to a gallery in the Middle East, and the art was going really well. And
what age were you when this was happening?
Like this was kind of late 20s.
Wow, so that's, I mean, you kind of came out of art school then, or design school, and just and had massive success with art. That's amazing. That's quite, like, it's quite a short turnaround time when you compare other artists struggle for years to try and get their work out there. Yours just got picked up.
Well, it was a while, and there was loads of kind of knocking on doors. And the art world back then was really snobby. So I remember going into a gallery on Cork Street and, had a catalogue of my work, and they basically ran me out. You just really need to have such a thick neck. And I think that paid off. Just like, I didn't go, I went to fashion college. I didn't study art until when I left college. I worked as an apprentice with a South African artist, and he helped me kind of develop my own style of painting, because I'm not good figuratively, and he really helped me. I suppose he helped me to define a kind of style of painting that worked with me. I remember from my thesis in my final year, I did it on color theory and color therapy and the effects on the human brain. And that's something that I've taken through with everything I do. So I use different colors to kind of to balance or calm. And a lot of my paintings that I sell to people's homes are usually, it's amazing, people are just drawn to either, really calming piece or renewal, or else they want something really bright and vibrant for when you enter the home to give you a lift. So it's amazing how people don't realize what they're attracted to, but they instantly know what's going to work for their space to create an atmosphere. But it was when I was showing at one of those exhibitions in the Middle East, the lady who owned the gallery was part of the Omani royal family. And back then, this was just at the cusp of online stores. So it was kind of hard to get. At the time, it was warm in the Middle East and it was winter here. And it was kind of hard to get kind of summer clothes during the winter. And so I made kind of culturally respectable clothing because I had a pretty strict dress code. I had to have kind of the arms had to be covered, not fully, but like and below the knee and that kind of thing. So I bought an abaya and a hijab and what else did I buy? Oh, a burqa. And I basically created pieces to work underneath. And the abaya looks like a wind tunnel. It kind of hangs from the shoulders down, so as air can circulate the body, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I created work around that. And it was when I was showing at this, it was the first time that they'd brought Art Paris to Abu Dhabi. And at the time, they were building Yas Island, where they were putting in a Louvre and a Guggenheim. And so this was kind of used as a kind of pure, to kind of elevate Abu Dhabi as the cultural center of Middle East. And so it was at that show that there was a girl who was a buyer for the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and she bought one of my pieces, and her sister was a buyer for a Middle Eastern store. And her sister started asking me, oh, where'd you get your clothes? They're really interesting. I've been here a few days this week and I've noticed them. And I just explained they're hand painted kind of prints from my artwork. And I just screen printed them. And we just kept in touch. And I came home and decided, she said, there's definitely something in that. It's something I'd be interested in. Would you consider putting something together and submitting it? And I'll take a look and see if my head buyer would be interested in it. And that's kind of how it steamrolled. And it literally steamrolled. Then I did Paris Fashion Week the following year and had 20 international accounts and was not prepared, just like jumped into it. No, like didn't even have a proper business plan. Typical ADHD, went, fuck it, I'll just do it. Just insane. And I went from like a nice calm life, 3 kids, living in the countryside, to up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to get to deal with the Australians and people, the Kiwis and people from Singapore and Hong Kong and Japan. And then, your day would, the rest of the world would wake up and you just continue the clock. And then you were basically getting no sleep because by the time the American stores would open, it's nighttime here. And then 3 or 4 hours later, you're up to,
oh my goodness.
So yeah, that was mental.
Yeah. How long did that go on for, that period of time?
That period of I burnt out, and then my investors pulled out as well, so that was a fun time. And then I basically just clawed everything back, made it really small. I found that I'm a small designer, in the greater scheme of things, and I found that realistically, I felt that it was wrong producing each, I was producing 4 to 6 seasons for a small main line. And I was just thinking, it's ridiculous me doing pre-spring and pre-fall as well as spring, summer and winter. It's insane. And cruise. And so I just clawed it all back, did 1 to 2 seasons. That was it. And focused on, creating work with more eco fabrics, more sustainable fabrics. And then I got talking to Dunn Stores, and they basically changed my life, to be quite honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did that partnership work for you? Or how does it work for you?
Oh, incredibly. I have an amazing team, absolutely incredible team. When I started my main line, when I showed at Paris Fashion Week for spring summer 2012, I had a capsule collection in it of kind of printed leggings and t-shirts, and from that there was a stylist called Kimmy O'Neill, and she pulled some of my stuff for Rita Ora and for Cara Delevingne.
Wow.
And for Jessie J and Paloma Faith and a few other people. And I started to make kind of stage outfits for.
That's so cool. That's so cool when you have a music background as well. That's just so cool.
That was amazing. That was the dream, because when I was in the band, I never felt comfortable being up front. But I really loved the fact of creating something and seeing it move on stage
Yeah.
on someone. I mean, that was that for me. That was the that's the ultimate. I mean,
Wow.
that was incredible. And then I started dressing these K-pop band called FX, and like we couldn't understand why the in Seoul in South Korea they all the stores all of them just kept reordering and reordering and reordering, and it was all the same print. So I went online because to see there was a K-pop stylist that was pulling the stuff,
Mm.
and I messaged her and said, you know, what's the story? There's loads of stuff flying out, and have you dressed anyone, or you know, should there be a reason why it's all going insanely well? But she was like, oh yeah, this band FX, check them out. And I think the clothing had only been on worn for maybe I think like half a day, and it was in this pop video, and the pop video had only been up I think maybe 3 weeks. And when I looked at it, the pop video had 40 million views. I couldn't believe it. It's so weird. It's so weird because you're living in like in Monaghan you're working out of like a rural Monaghan, right at the border. You're working out of like an old duck hatchery. Farming, your farming is like the basis of the community. Everyone's into GA. Like the coolest thing is probably a GA jersey. And I'm not dissing that. They're very cool.
Yeah.
But and then I like switch on my laptop, and then I see like this fashion forecasting site, global fashion forecasting site, having, you know, Jessie J wearing my stuff, and and a picture of then this South Korean band, and saying, you know, that this print is kind of formative for the following season. I nearly got sick laughing because it's like, this was created in like rural Monaghan.
It's amazing. But it just goes to show what can be done as well from home studios or from your own home office. And it's really about developing one's creativity in whatever it means, because it does have worldwide reach. You know, it's quite remarkable. And it must it's such a buzz to see that.
Oh, definitely. But I think that's the fantastic thing about how democratic in some ways the likes of platforms like Instagram and Meta, that how democratic they have made designing. And as a designer, I can, through maybe 3 steps of separation, or in some ways I can like message people who live the other side of the world who, you know, who buy my stuff. Like that's it takes the middleman out in some ways, but it's just invaluable. It means that definitely, because I see it now, like young designers get the chance to, you know, to really get their stuff out there on a global platform, whereas it took me the guts of 20 years to get to where I am. And to be honest, I wouldn't be where I am today without Duns. Like they're incredible. Wow. Their team is amazing. I love my job, love working with them. I'm working on a level that I learn every day. Do you know, it's just, and a lot of the team, we kind of empower each other. Like and I'm not going to lie, fashion is a tough working environment, but this is, you really feel that you're part of a team, and it's not just like, it's all shapes and sizes on the team. We have a huge focus on, you know, it's gym wear and it needs to fit all shapes and sizes, all ages, all demographics. And that's what we always strive for as well. And I really like when the team kind of pull back and go, well, you know, our customer is this person, because I go off on these flighty things going, oh, we should target this kind of customer. But at the end of the day, our bread and butter is the woman, the typical Irish woman, and she keeps changing as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating to
She's
watch, I'd
all shapes
imagine.
and sizes, all ages, all different colors. I mean, and that's the best thing. It's fantastic.
I mean, I always buy the pieces from Dunn's because I love it. It becomes part of my uniform every time you release stuff.
Thank you.
Because I wear like a lot of leggings, t-shirts on the go. I have two small kids, you know, I'm active, I have all those things. And I've noticed in the last year or two that it seems to have become like almost a universal uniform for a lot of mums out there as well, which is such a beautiful thing. And like you said, it has brought so much color into daily wearing that maybe, you know, another designer or another brand may not have embraced that so well. Let's talk about the color for a second. You studied color and the effects it has on the brain. How do you use color to convey what you're trying to say? I mean, that's a very broad question, I know.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I I use color in sportswear. I use color. We have, for example, in lots of, I use it as a vehicle in lots of different ways. But a lot of our jumpers are very bright. A lot of our hoodies and jumpers, some will be bright and in like a kind of nurturing color, and then some will be calmer. And they're what I see to be used for the calmer colors, like a blue or a green, are to be used for kind of like post workout, or you know, or first thing in the morning when you're tired and you've got to get small kids up for school and it's your throw on. It's your throw on. You don't have to think about it. And then things like the leggings and the sports vests. I choose those colors really carefully because they're supposed to have a mix of balance, so like a blues and greens, but also supposed to have a little spurt of energy. So there'll always be some kind of level of pink, or like a red or a bright yellow. They're just little sparks, little hints here or there. I think color's just so important. I remember part of my, and I still like have this in the back of my brain, you know, when you go back, like you must know it, like with them learning scripts and stuff. I bet you can recall like scripts going, or running lines, like I'd say 20 years ago. I bet you can recall some of those lines.
I can't. Do you know what's really,
okay.
You know what's funny though? And I'll just give a brief explanation of it. I can't. So I learn stuff really, really fast. I learn big chunks of text really fast. It goes in and it's just a process that I've had to learn. Yeah. But actually, once it's done, it's gone.
No way.
It's gone. I couldn't tell you. People come up to me on the street and say, "Oh, this scene in The Young Offenders," and I'm like, I have no recollection of that. Honestly, it sounds really bad. It just goes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So but that's it. Okay. So I didn't pick a very good one. So with me, there's a couple of things from the thesis that always stick with me. And one of them is, I think it was in like the 50s or I think it was the 50s. The US Navy were having problems with their long haul Navy trips. So long periods at sea. Like below deck, there was a lot of aggro, and they went to a lab, an army lab, and asked them to think of different ways of using like paint or color, or to psychologically calm the inmates. And this color, it's called Baker Miller pink, was basically made up in a lab, and it's called Baker Miller because that was the name of the two heads in the army that I can't remember the proper names, colonels or whatever, in the army that instigated the research. And they came up with this color that it's basically different levels of red and white mixed to that, and it comes out in, it ended up being called drunk tank pink because it was so popular with the Navy, that they rolled it into jails, into psych wards, and that's where it got the name of Drunk Tank Pink. But it basically calmed all of the aggravation. It calmed all of the aggravation below deck. It calmed people who had been arrested, you know, in the holding cells before they're moved through the prisons. They would use those colors in the holding cells. And it's a color that's still used today, but it's actually now called Barbie pink.
Oh, wow.
Which is
that's
hilarious.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's amazing. With Barbie having just been released this year, maybe it's just had this, and I thought it was a wonderful film on many levels. But maybe it's had this calming effect on all of us. It's so interesting, actually, because I do recall being in school and my art teacher talking about the use of color as well. And she was seen as, you know, at that time, well, she's a really alternative art teacher. That was the way she was seen, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But she was really interesting. And again, she didn't focus too much on figures or form. It was more about color. And she did a lot of color theory, which was way out there at that stage. And she talked about, and I experienced this myself when I actually renovated my first house, about colors that were used in Ireland at a specific time period. And when you strip back wallpaper or paint, you can find it underneath. And there used to be a lot of like very deep reds, and a lot of, on the bottom half would be like bottle greens, like very deep greens as well. And they started to, that was the fashion at the time, essentially, probably turn of the century. But they started to change what they painted on the walls again, because I think it was, I'm trying to recall, it was something to do with like trying to emulate royal colors, or these perceived elevated colors. But actually what it was doing, the houses were too dark and too small. So what it was doing was creating quite a heavy feeling in the house. And so now the trend is really, you know, lighter walls, whiter walls, to bring the light in and, you know, have different colors. But that I do recall from my school days, her talking about that. It always stayed with me, about the power of color. And I see it myself, actually, with, you know, I mean, I see it in the form of the power of costume. You know, when you're putting together a character and the final piece that always goes on is your outfit. You know, it's the costume, and it feels like it's the final solidifying part of pulling this character together. Do you notice that when, maybe for yourself or for others, because you've worked in that industry for so long, when they put on a piece of clothing, how it changes them or how it empowers them in some way? Is that something you've noticed?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. Like clothing is armor, in a way. Like if you think about it, I went through a period a few years ago of just wearing black the whole time.
Yes.
Just wearing black because life was so busy. And black is actually quite a powerful shade. But I was so busy, I didn't want anything to distract. Like and then I find when I'm painting large scale, I have to wear I've like this orange jumpsuit.
Yeah, your iconic boiler suit. I love that.
Exactly. But like what you're talking about, once I put this on, literally I feel like this surge of energy. Now I know it sounds absolutely barmy, but it's not. Like, think about military fatigues. They're in very grounding colors. But it also blends into, you know, the environment as well. And green is very powerful. It's very grounding. It helps the brain concentrate on a very base level as well. Wow. And then if you think about like salesmen, traditional salesmen we're talking about, they usually wear blue ties, navy ties, blue ties. Men wear blue shirts. Blue is you're wearing a blue, very nice knitted cardigan. Blue is a great color for communication.
Oh,
especially if it's worn like up around
Yeah.
this area as well. And I'm wearing like a blue denim painting border suit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like color, as we think, you know, we think about it subliminally.
Mm.
You know, it's something that we don't usually, you know, put a lot of thought into, but it nearly chooses our situations without us realizing it.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but like what you're saying, it's like when someone puts on a piece, like it's dressing a model backstage for a fashion show. I
Mm.
mean, that's pretty, like, I remember doing it for London and Paris Fashion Week, and I remember putting certain pieces, like if I remember putting this like fluorescent pink big long kind of shawl dress on a model, and literally as soon, and she was breathtaking, she was like Naomi Campbell with like a shaved head, and
Mm.
literally as soon as I put it on her, she became this regal, strong kind of queen.
Wow.
It was, and literally her shoulders came back, and it's
Mm.
mad, mad.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Costume is like, it's incredibly powerful.
And I suppose depending on what you choose or what you wear, like you said, when that model's shoulders came back, it gives you, depending on what you're wearing, it will actually dictate your body posture as well and how you carry yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Like if I always find when I was younger, if I put on a skirt that was too short, I would shrink, you know, try to pull
Oh
it
yeah.
down, try and cover it. Because I'm quite tall. I'm nearly 6 foot. So everything
Oh,
was
wow.
always too short on me. So I was like, always, you know, I kind of used to shrink in my size and in my body. I don't anymore, absolutely not. But
Yeah.
when I was younger, I did. I was conscious of that, you know.
Yeah.
What would you say to women maybe who are struggling to introduce color, really wanting it, but not, or feeling afraid of it, or not really knowing what to do with it? What would you say to women who are in that situation?
Um,
Or in,
start small, like a
mm,
scarf or a beanie hat, or you
mm,
know, or a baseball hat. Um, and it, I think I think dressing is so personal. And I really dislike trends. I think that's certainly what I create is never trend driven. It's more driven about um, comfort and feeling good and positive
mm,
about yourself and the body you're in. It's not about like trends for emaciated, small,
mm,
minute part of the population who are half starved, God love them. But
mm,
it's about real women, and it's a privilege to dress all of my customers. But I really feel that it's very personal, and I would always start with something that you're personally drawn to, that
mm.
suits your color, that, you know, everyone has a color that suits them. It doesn't have to overpower you. It doesn't have to be like head to toe. You know, and don't be afraid to clash colors either,
Yeah.
or to mix them, or to use like different levels of, say, red, or different levels of yellow, or yeah, it's color is something you should have fun with. And so is
Yeah.
dressing. So is dressing is a joy. And you know, it's every day you get up, you know, and that you're, you know, above ground is a joy. So get up
Yes.
and dress yourself, and you know, in stuff that you want to wear. Or if you feel like shite, you know, excuse my language, put on like a really cozy, like our black Duns cozy soft touch tracksuit, and you know, be good to yourself.
Yeah, it's such lovely advice. And I agree, like, you know, waking up sometimes you go, oh, having to face the day. And if you're, you know, busy or you're working or whatever it is, and having to choose what to wear. And sometimes you just want to fire it out the window and just wear what's fun. I
Yeah.
introduced so much color into my wardrobe in the last couple of years, and it's just revolutionized. I've always been a colorful dresser in some sense, but
Yeah.
I had to redo it. I had to relook at everything and go, oh, everything's got a bit bland here again now. I'm just going to throw a load of color in and just see
Yeah.
what happens with this, you know. And it's so much fun. It brought the joy back into dressing again.
I can see is your cuff, is it a neon yellow?
Yeah,
Oh, that's so cool. I
neon
love it.
cuffs. Yeah, and
So cool.
there's little ceramic buttons, and there's a
Oh,
neon
neon
thread in them.
thread.
Yeah.
What amazing detail.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? I love
Yes,
it.
really cool.
What is her name? Oh my goodness. She's
It
an
looks
Irish.
like an Aaron knit.
Pearl Reddington.
Oh, I love her stuff.
Yeah,
Amazing.
really lovely. And
Yeah.
it's that kind of really good quality, traditional knit, but
Yeah.
it's got the color running through it.
Ah,
It's so
stunning.
lovely. Yes.
And it'll last a lifetime as well.
I agree, which I really, really like. I love that. I will literally have this forever. I can probably give it to my daughter when she's old enough, you know.
Yeah. That does become a problem, let me tell you. I have two daughters. One is so good with clothes. She's so honest. You can trust her. And then the second one is just a renegade master. She nicks everything I have. Thankfully, she's not the same shoe size as me. Nicks everything, lies to my face. Oh, no, I don't have that. Like, literally.
Great.
But that's the thing. Like, you hand stuff on. I have stuff that's like that my mum gave to me that I've handed on to my girls. Like, it's
I have stuff that my mum was a dressmaker, actually. My grandmother was a dressmaker. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my mum was a dressmaker, my grandmother was a dressmaker, and my great grandfather was a tailor.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
that's mental. My
yeah.
my grandmother was a dressmaker, but her going back through the female line, they were all lace makers.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
during the famine, it was the lace making that kept the family alive in Connemara. Mental. But it's mental that it ran through your family, it's tailoring and the dressmaking. It's mad.
I think as far as I'm aware, it would be my great grandfather. I think he was the tailor to the Irish show jumping team or something like that. There was some connection like that. And there was some connection about him designing the gates of, I must ask my mum in case I get this wrong, designing the gates of Crawford Art Gallery in Cork.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is lovely. I mean, those gates are beautiful and they're still there. So I must ask her, actually, because she used to always say it when we'd pass by in the city, and she'd say I think your great grandfather designed those gates or whatever. But yeah, so it's lovely to have that in the family. You know, it's really, really nice.
It's incredible. I've just realized I've had my mic around the wrong way the whole time.
That's all right. Sometimes I get confused with mine is. Sometimes it can be a pop screen, or sometimes it can be a shield at the back. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, this is
wow.
So my daughter is already. She's only 5, but she's already looking at my jewelry, going, "Can I have that?" And I said, "You can have everything. You can have it all."
I love that, Mummy. When you die, can I have that?
You're like, that doesn't bear thinking about, but yes, you can.
Yeah, I know. Kids are just straight to it, aren't they?
Oh, it's great. It's so great.
Hey, if you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to show your support, if you like, you can buy us a coffee using the Buy Me a Coffee app or online at buymeacoffee.com/livewildpodcast, or just click the link in our show notes, it will take you there. Alternatively, you can also donate crypto to the show using the BitDonate app or at bitdonate.com and search for Live Wild, or just follow the link in the show notes. Either or both those donations really help us make the best show possible. And as always, you can like, subscribe, and share the show with your mates or on social media. Thank you so much for your help.
So have you worked, so your daughters, have you worked, I've seen one of them modeling for you, is that correct? Am I right?
That's right, that's the wild one, yeah.
Fair play. It must be so lovely to have your daughter working with you on that level as well. Like, that's such a privilege, really.
It's brilliant. I've had both of them. The eldest, I remember she was, so bad. I did this Cadbury's ad, and she was like in 4th year, and she was doing work experience with me. But her foot was in a cast because she used to dance with the Dublin Modern Dance Academy or something.
Oh, wow.
And she got injured and tore ligaments, and it ruined her dancing career, her ballet, modern dance career. God love her. But I had her in this like canvas dress, and it was like February in my studio in Mana, and freezing cold, and she was in the boot. God, so mean. In the boot with the torn ligaments, throwing paint against this canvas dress, being filmed for like a Cadbury's ad. That was like cruelty beyond. It was terrible. But
I bet you that was an amazing experience for her, though. That her perception's probably different.
Well, yeah, no, she did love it, to be fair. But Hallie is the middle child, and she is a curve model with Not Another Agency.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually, the eldest, who was the unfortunate poor soul in the ad, she went on to study in the Lear, and then studied in Drogheda, and then gave up acting. And just finished her degree in law in London. Yeah, mad.
I always say, actually, I always think that there is a bit of crossover.
Yes.
Because with law, it's like a presentation of oneself, particularly if you end up being a barrister and going to court.
Yeah.
It's a bit of I don't want to say an act. I don't want to disparage any barristers, but
but you're right. You're right, and
the courtroom is like a theater, you know.
Yes, and then the same. And your brain has to think in the same way for the rota learning.
Yes.
You know. So yeah, I do see a correlation. Absolutely see it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for her. Well, she's got the background in acting anyway to set her up for it. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
You talked about a little bit about trying to balance or using sustainable materials, and you know, it must be such a tricky balance to do that. How do you approach that by producing, you know, affordable creations, but balancing it with something that's conscious and sustainable?
It's not easy, to be honest. And thankfully, the eco fabric and a textile end of the industry is just changing at such a rapid pace, which is brilliant.
Great.
But initially, when I started using eco fabrics, I actually got burned quite badly because of buying fabrics that would have maybe 30% shrinkage, and you know, having stuff returned to me, and that was tricky. It's a learning experience. But at the end of the day, when you produce, there's no point in just producing more stuff. You know, when you think about it, everything that I produce as a designer, everything that I produce in Dunn's, there's a reason behind what we produce. We hyper analyze our customer and analyze what she might need in her life, and think very, very honestly and clearly about what we're producing and how much we're producing. I think it's important, really, really important.
And I'd imagine by doing that, you know, hyper analysis, it eliminates a lot of waste along the way.
Big time. Absolutely.
And reduces production costs. So therein lies the balance, if you can get that right. So, I mean, essentially, it's probably about a bit of research for you guys then.
Yeah. And then also, nothing ever gets thrown away. Everything is used. We do not believe in anything ending up in a big, huge clothing dump in God knows where. Yeah, that is not what we strive for at all. And in my main line, 40% of all my fabrics are recycled. I make these printed jackets, and they're made from recycled canvas, and they're kind of like biker jackets. And then I make other ones that are made from recycled plastic bottles. But what I did learn on my research along the way was there are some companies in China that actually make plastic bottles to create this fabric that is eco-friendly.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So that's what you're like.
That's what you're facing then.
That's what you're facing.
Like, so they're producing the plastic bottles that will be recycled back into this material.
And there are some big stores, not going to name them, that they will bring stock, and these are huge retailers. They will bring stock into Europe and sew on a label saying made in Italy or made in France. But all that's happening in the manufacturing at that point is they're sewing on the made in France or made in Italy label. And these are extremely expensive, huge, massive brands. And then on the other scale, there are
sorry. So just to stop at that for a moment. So they're bringing in the material into Europe, having had all the garments made elsewhere.
Yes.
And then they're putting the label on, and that's how they're getting around this loophole of saying that it's made because it's maybe the final alteration on it.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes. These are massive, like, brands that have, are on Sloane Square or, in centre of London. And you would think that everything is made in France and Italy in their ateliers. No, and I've actually been on the factory floor where some of these perceived luxury brands their goods are made. Hilarious. And then for me, the worst offender is the massive retailer, huge, massive retailer that gets everything done in the Far East and has a label and sews a label on the back neck saying 100% recycled fabric. The label, that's 100% recycled fabric.
Oh, stop.
Not the goods. So then a good way of finding out really what the fabric is made from is when you say, if it's a dress, you go up the side seam of the dress and with your care label, it'll show, it legally has to show you the fabrics. But when you're picking something up and the first thing you see is one of the first things you see is the back neck label, say whatever brand it is. And sometimes they have the tag saying 100% recyclable, or else it'll say on the back neck label 100% recyclable.
But they're talking about the actual label.
Yeah.
Not the garment. Oh my word.
Yeah.
It's good to know this. I would never have known that. I would have just taken it at face value because, I would consciously try to shop in some places, not in others, or balance it out as much as possible, But to have that, so you go up the side seam and look at the label where maybe the cleaning instructions are. Is that, that's the correct label to look at?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very, very cheeky and naughty. But I do think that that clothing, like realistically, it's expensive to buy good food. It is. Let's be real and honest. And a lot of clothing, everything is very expensive. So not everyone can afford to buy, clothing that's made from 100% recyclable fabric. So unfortunately, until we reach the point where that is the case and it's financially viable, brilliant. But not everyone can afford to do that. Clothing needs to be affordable. So
absolutely, particularly kids clothing when they're growing out of it so quickly and so quickly. So I as much as we can, talk about the pitfalls of it, there is, like you said, about being balanced within your life and not beating yourself up over it either,
Oh, Jesus, no.
Yeah. What do you think is the key to making timeless fashion? Because the collections that you have, I've been following your collections for quite a while, and the silk dresses that you produce, they're absolutely beautiful. They are so beautiful. And to me, they're so timeless. You could take that dress or one of those dresses and you could put it 10 years ago, or you could put it 10 years in the future and it would work. What's the key to that, do you think?
I think the key to longevity is in the shape and the fabric, and possibly the color and print. I grew up in an era where nothing was wasted. Where I remember my mum teaching me how to darn our socks. I mean, this sounds like I was walking to school in my bare feet. I absolutely was not, but that's the reality. I remember in the 80s, my mum teaching me how to darn our socks. Like, that's just
Brilliant. Yeah.
you know, if there was a hole in something, you mended it.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that was good was really cherished and passed down. So, like, there's pieces that I've been surrounded by that, you know, my grandmother would have had, you know, my grandaunts, and I think that definitely affects what I produce. And also not being trend driven. You can never be trend driven. And that's a mistake, number one, if you want it to last.
It's interesting because you've said that before, not to be trend driven. I feel like the word that keeps coming up for me is like that you're a trend leader rather than a trend follower. Because
thank you.
yeah, but it feels that way. I mean, a lot of between your art and your design, it feels like it was very ahead of its time for when you were starting out. There's a lot of artists that are using, you know, a lot of beautiful colors and shapes now, and everything is so original and so different, even within the artists that have kind of come out in the last couple of years. But it feels like you were very much ahead of your time. Was it a struggle because of that? Because it kind of you were so original, I suppose, at that time?
To be honest, like it was a huge struggle. I remember like getting run out of galleries. I remember being told, because from the like, I studied with South African artists for 3 years, but I don't have a degree in art, so I was snubbed. I was told that I wasn't a proper artist because I was like painting in abstract form. I was told that it was a bit stupid and barmy to put elements of color theory and color therapy into my work. And then at the time, there was this kind of insular, parochial kind of art scene in Ireland where it was kind of friends of friends, or, you know, very much male orientated, very few female artists that I could see in the industry that were getting any, as I call it, wall space in galleries. And to be honest, I was never taken on by an Irish gallery. I was taken on by one in the north of Ireland. I was, it was good 20 years in the industry. And I think the industry has completely changed. Because I suppose what I was doing was like running and pouring paint, and capturing the paint as it was moving, photographing it, digitally manipulating it, and then letting it dry. So it was very kind of three-dimensional.
Yeah.
It was, I think it was pretty raw, and there was nothing around like that. But because I wasn't perceived as, I didn't go to NCAD, tried to get in there 3 times, was rejected, and then ended up being on the board of NCAD, which was
hilarious. I love that.
Yeah, it was so funny. But because I didn't go to college, I always kind of had, because I didn't go to art college, I always had that kind of what shame in a way, that, you know, I felt I wasn't kind of good enough.
A proper artist in some sense. Yeah.
Exactly. And because I didn't have this pseudo intellectual over analysis of my work as well, that didn't fit into you know, the galleries at the time, you know, didn't fit into that vibe. That it just, you know, and at the time I was with a gallery in Berlin, I was with a gallery in London, I was with a gallery in the Middle East, I was with a gallery in Miami. But it was mad. And then of course the recession came, and every single gallery except for the one in Berlin folded overnight. Within the space of a month, every single one of them were gone. But the best thing was, I think in the last 5 to 7 years, I've found my tribe. I've found there's an amazing art scene in Ireland. There's people like Macer, that's his piece of time. He has an incredible gallery, Atelier Macer. He I think he's responsible, like, for kind of bringing an awful lot of other artists, him and Hank Tuff, for bringing an awful lot of artists into the uh, uh, into the Irish scene that mightn't have had the chance. Yeah, and there's an amazing crossover between graffiti and art. Yeah, I think it's a really, really exciting time to be an artist in Ireland, and it's very balanced, male, female. I think it's a great time for Irish art. Unfortunately, Hang Tough had to close its doors, which is a huge shame.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because Rubio did so much for the industry. But yeah, it's big shame.
How important do you think it is for artists to have business acumen? Because I feel like, you know, as actors as well, most actors or creators will say in a broad range, most creators that really can sustain themselves and sustain their career become entrepreneurs or are naturally entrepreneurs. How important do you think it is for artists to have some form of business acumen?
Oh, I think it's something that should, like, you're so focused on the creation and perfecting, like, the form of the creative industry that you're in. That's your major focus. But there's the financial side, and if you can't control the financial side, you can't live. So they come hand in hand, and I think you need to be a bit of a wheeler dealer. Like, when I was in fashion college, I was like selling art on Stephen's Green and Marion Square at the weekends, but I was also selling flowers in nightclubs at the weekends, which was grim. But
but you did it, yeah.
Well, you did it. You did it because you had to be a grafter. You had to have a side hustle. I worked in promotions. I worked, as my brother said, I looked like a slutty Santa handing out flyers, like, on the
That's so kind.
I mean, I did it all. I did it all. But that's just what you did. And I think all of that kind of side hustle. And with acting as well, like, I was a waitress for a while. Like, with acting, you know, my daughter, when she was in acting college, was a waitress too. So, you know, I think, and also I think everyone, even if you become a doctor, even if you're studying to be a doctor, or especially a banker, I think it should be mandatory that everyone works in hospitality or retail at some stage, because you learn how to be respectful to one another. And it's only when you're the other side of the table, when you're being the waitress or you're behind the cash till, or, you know, that you really see what people are like. I think that's important.
Oh, it's so important. I used to always think it's really interesting if anyone's going on a date and I would always say, look at how your date treats your server.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was a waitress for years and years and years. And I always found it fascinating. They will treat the person opposite them in one way and then, you know, possibly be quite disrespectful to somebody else. And I always thought, that's a real telltale sign, you know.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
But to get back to your initial question, because I completely digressed, I think it's really important. Like, it's a fundamental part of life.
And it should be taught, I think, in art schools, design schools, drama schools. I'm the same, you know. I really think it should be even basics of accounting.
Even basics of accounting, how to apply for grants.
Yes.
Just, you know, basics.
Yeah. And now even how to scale your business, or, you know, because so much, like you said, is online on Instagram. How do you scale your business and how do you make it work for you? And how do you utilize social media as a business model? You know, none of that is taught. You have to figure out a lot of that yourself. And I think it's a shame because you see a lot of artists fall by the wayside because of that. And they fall into this starving artist category, which benefits nobody and especially not themselves, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a shame.
It is. It's a big shame. It really is. But like, financial education is so important. But I was very lucky because part of my degree was in marketing.
Oh,
So
great.
that was just fantastic.
Mm.
And also I did like business and economics business studies in secondary school as well, which I found kind of interesting too. So
Mm.
it helped,
It
definitely
all
helped.
helps,
Yeah.
definitely. What do you think, this is a completely different question, but what do you think art does for you personally on a spiritual level? And I ask this question because I'm interested in sacred geometries and yantras. And so, you know, you go into the Buddhist or Hindu culture and they see drawing sacred geometry or drawing yantras as a way into for personal discovery or self-discovery or healing. Does
Yeah.
your art do that for you?
Yes. And actually, I think it is something that that has actually been part of me from a very young age.
Mm.
Without knowing it, my mother was teaching me how to self-regulate
Mm.
with the drawing and the coloring and the doodling. And if I don't paint, like if I don't paint nearly every day or do something creative nearly every day, I think I get a bit low. It sounds
Mm.
terrible.
No, it
But
doesn't.
I
Mm.
just feel like I am not working. It's not work. I feel like I am not um, living that on that kind of higher frequency. I feel like
Mm.
I'm not actually in touch with why I'm meant to be here, or like that's the
Mm.
thing. I think that's art and being creative is it's it's in everyone. It's in like it's part of who we are, but we lose it as we get older. Do you know
Mm.
that
Yes.
art is play? Do you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
like look at your kids, like you've a 5-year-old, don't you?
5-year-old and 8-year-old, yeah.
Yeah. So like they teach you to play all over again, but
Yeah.
and that's so important because as an adult you lose the confidence in going back to just doing that. Uh,
Mm.
and I think there's being able to look at, for me, being able to draw and paint and do something creative. It's something I have to do every day. And
Mm.
even if it means like on my phone going in and like I've loads of different apps to digitally manipulate stuff. And even
Mm.
as I go to bed at night, I'm working out what print I can mix with layer over another print and what dress that'll work with or what shape that'll work with or
Love it.
where is a good location for the next Dunstores shoot, and what exact look am I going to put on the model? What is she going to look like? Is she going to have a nose ring? What's the vibe of the shoot? Is it
Mm.
music inspired? Is it what are the colors saying to me? It's always running through your head,
Mm.
and it never stops. I fucking love it. It's great.
I love that because it's the very, pardon the pun, but it is the very fabric of you and what you do.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I am so fucking lucky. I really am.
Wow. Isn't it beautiful to recognize that and to be able to recognize that with all the stresses and strains, how, and how you scale the business, how you pare it back and everything that you've learned, but to recognize how lucky you are to be able to do it every day is so wonderful.
Yeah.
What you talked about, getting a diagnosis in ADHD, did that come much later in life, that diagnosis? Because I suppose back then it wasn't really being diagnosed. It was kind of like you were a hyperactive child or a bold child or an unruly child or whatever it was.
Exactly.
Did it come later, and how did it change your life actually getting a diagnosis?
It did come later in life, but that was after many times of like opening the classroom door, jumping out the window, stupid or people, you're a very bold girl. It was like, oh, you're so bold. Or you're wild, you're insane, you need to be locked up. And being told you need to be locked. I actually left school with crippling shame because I actually thought like maybe, oh my God, maybe I am actually mental. Because no one else was kind of no one, even in, well, there was a girl in the school who had autism, but she was exceptionally bright, and I got on quite well with her. But I do think that I actually, to be fair, because school was so hard, and because people always told me I would amount to nothing, and that I was a messer, and or mad, or that just makes you want to really fucking succeed. Do you know what I mean?
I
It makes
know.
you want to be a better person. And when I became a parent, and it was along the lines of being a parent that one of my kids was diagnosed, and then they actually said that the woman doing the diagnosis said to me, I think you have it as well, and you should get a diagnosis, or get an assessment. So it wasn't until I was in my 30s that
Wow.
I actually got a diagnosis, and I think the ignorance on my behalf of not knowing, it led me to like 17 years of an eating disorder. Like,
my goodness.
Yeah, but like it's just life,
Yeah, and that was the way it was dealt with at that
Yeah,
time, because like you said, there was no awareness of it at
no,
all. I mean, I was in a similar situation. I left school feeling dumb,
yeah,
like, because I just didn't fit in. I've never quite fitted into anywhere. So,
yeah.
you end up kind of doing your own thing as a result, which is wonderful. I think, shaping in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic because it made you what you are today, which is like an exceptional actress, and like it shapes you, for good or
For
for
better, for
bad.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
But as a parent, it makes you hyper conscious of, of kind of how your kids must be. Well, for me, it made me hyper conscious, and it made me it certainly made me parent my kids in a different way. It made me open them up to one particular child, opened them up to a more kind of creative path. And I would at points take her out of school to work on shoots, and
Amazing.
and yeah, or all three children spent like their childhood in the studio, or like making mudslides outside out of paint, and
Love
sliding
it.
the drumlins of Monaghan, and covered in what we thought would end up like beautiful painted dungarees, but it just looked like poo, because all colors mush into brown. But yeah, I think it was really important to show them that it's not just all about the traditional lines of education. And education is power. Let's be real and honest here, because it's the one thing, when all things fell to shit for me, it was the one thing that I had power in, was my education, was my degree, was what I learned, and without that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. So it's a mix of both, but definitely like, yeah, I think it's definitely not easy. It wasn't an easy path, but the best thing about being alive today is that it now is an easier path if you're neurodiverse.
Wonderful. What would you say to fashion graduates, art graduates now that are coming out and, feeling, they're in the big bad world? Because there's no kind of stepping stone, not really, unless you get snapped up, out of art school or fashion school. What would you say to them that are stepping out into the real world now?
I found the jump out of, once I finished college, that was the most terrifying.
Yeah.
So I was watching my peers, and a lot of them studied business and law in UCD, or arts, or and a lot of them got a lot of them ended up working in the city in London, or in were going to Paris, and people that I was in college with, some of them ended up, working for fashion houses in Paris. Now, mind you, they worked for nothing for months and years, and that was the reality of it. But what I would definitely say is get out there and try everything. And it's just not enough anymore to be able to make clothing, but you do need to be able to, if you go and work for a designer, to sew a button on and to make a garment. No one's above that. Even and like, especially me, you need to. I think when someone comes to work with me, I will do all the jobs that they're doing. No one is above any job. I'll sweep the studio floor and I'll make coffee for the interns. That's just what you do. It's, equal and balanced. But when you get out of college, don't be afraid to just do everything. Now's the time to try everything. And the more you push yourself out of your comfort zone, the more you learn, the harder you learn. Try everything. Set up your own label and see what it's like. But the reality is it makes more sense to work for someone else and make mistakes on their book, not on your own.
Interesting. Yeah. And not to be afraid to fail either is the other thing. I think there's so much, I think that's what holds so many people back in every aspect of their lives and in every career, is that fear of failure. What if I try and fail? And it's like, well, what if you try and fail, but then learn so much from it? There's so many projects that I have failed at, quote unquote failed at. I've learned so much more from that than stuff that did work. It's really important.
Absolutely. I remember actually, I'm separated, but I remember my ex's sister saying to me, I remember saying to her, oh, I don't know if I can do it. And she's there, well, what if you look down the road in the future and you go, why didn't I do that? Said it's worse looking at it that way. She said, so what if you do it, you fail hard, fail fast, fine.
Yeah, fail hard, fail fast. I like that. Yeah,
that's the way to do it. Fail hard, fail fast. The best things I have done are mistakes that I've learned from, or things that were actual mistakes end up becoming the nuts and bolts of what I do.
Yeah, really. or the turning points in careers as well.
Big time. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we're coming towards the end of the interview. So at the end of the interview, I always like to throw, I call it the Live Wild quick fire round. Helen Steele, are you ready for your Live Wild quick fire round?
Oh, I'm scared.
No, don't be. Okay. What is your favorite color and why?
Oh my God. Jesus, that's the hardest. Wow, Jesus. Probably green. Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah. Why?
It's really powerful. Well, we're Irish as well. I'm Irish, so it's actually a really good look color for me. It's powerful, but it's also it's a grounded color. It's a color of renewal and replenishment, and it's a color of growth, and it's all around us. So
yes,
it's like blue. Blue's a powerful color too. But yeah, no, I love green. Green all the way. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of green. Do you believe in magic?
Oh God, yeah. Jesus,
I love it.
Yeah. Of course I do. Oh God, yeah.
Does magic happen for you every day in your everyday life?
Yeah, sometimes. Do you know what? I started doing this kind of manifesting every New Year's, and I write a list. It started out as 10 things every New Year's Eve, and I think it was 40 last year, but literally there are some days I wake up and that magic happens. Things actually happen, and this year especially it has happened. Yeah.
Wow.
I do believe in magic. Definitely.
Good. What do you stand for?
Ooh, I don't know. My biggest driver is fear. So honesty, even though I'm a terrible, like, one for embellishment. I love embellishing a story. Yeah, honesty. Yeah, I can't stand people just being fake. Yeah, honesty.
Lovely. If you were to distill yourself down to an essence, what would that essence be?
Oh, God.
These are tough ones, aren't they?
They really are. Oof. I don't know. Color? Is color an essence?
Yeah,
No.
it can be anything you want it to be.
Color. Yeah.
Color. Love it. What's the wildest thing you've ever done?
I think legally I probably can't say it. There's a few of those. I don't know. There's loads. So legally, it's probably not a good idea. Yeah, pass on that.
Pass on that. Okay. What's the one thing you do every day that helps you live wild and free? Because it is the Live Wild podcast. So,
well, it's not really wild, but that helps me live wild and free is eat chocolate and run.
Love it. There's balance. There's great balance to be had in that. Eat chocolate and run.
Yeah. And actually, can I swap the honesty for love? I think love is, definitely love.
That's what you stand for. Gorgeous. Helen Steele, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much. Thanks a million.
Thank you for being here. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed making these episodes. Thank you, as always, to our amazing guests. A special thank you to Aoife McNamara, my co-producer extraordinaire from Imagine Media. Please like, share, subscribe and rate us. It all really helps. And remember, this content is for education and entertainment purposes. In short, it's not gospel. I always say, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Always question everything and do your own research.